Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. and our two guests have been on this podcast 300 times between them. And they need no introduction. No. But we're gonna go.
Sorry.
We're gonna go ahead and give them introductions anyway.
Hey, what's the worst thing about fucking a horse in the ass?
What?
When it's his turn.
Now we really need no introduction.
That's a dad joke. That's what people say to me when I make a joke on Twitter. I get all these young people go, "Nice dad joke." Stop it. Stop it, Billy.
I get that all the time.
Do you really?
Dad joke.
I could be their grandfather. I have every right to take it and do a dad joke. I could be fucking great-grandfather joke.
They just want to push you around, but you guys are the two comedic minds that I feel so great being around. And help me write a joke. Two dad jokes walk into a bar.
Jesus Christ.
You want to hear your intros? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Gil. Quick.
I'm sorry about
That's
that.
That's okay. It's Jackie's fault.
Jackie Martling is a writer, author, occasional actor. Who he was in The Watcher with me.
Yes, classic.
Oh.
Yes, that was ignored by the Academy. Yeah.
Ironically.
And one of the most recognized and popular comedians of his generation, his 2017 memoir, The Joke Man Bowed to Stern, is available on Amazon, Kindle, and everywhere books are sold. And a new documentary called Joke Man will premiere in the fall of 2019. He's also a personal friend of Willie Nelson's.
I didn't put that in there, Frank.
And has been known to take off his pants in public.
That I might have put in.
Billy West is a musician, comedian, actor, award-winning voice artist who's provided voices of hundreds of popular characters, including Ren and Stimpy, Bugs Bunny, Popeye, Elmer Fudd, Futurama's Professor Farnsworth, and Dr. Zoidberg, and other roles too numerous to mention. As a musician, he's played and toured with legends such as Brian Wilson and Roy Orbison. His new animated Netflix series is the Matt Groening
Or Groening.
Matt Groening.
Whatever.
Disenchantment. He also knows more about Larry Fine and Paul Frees than anyone in their right mind should know. Please welcome to the podcast two of the funniest sons of bitches walking on the planet, Jackie Martling and Billy West.
Wow, thank you very much.
What a drum roll. Thank you.
Hi, boys.
So
Hi,
Jesus
Frank.
is on the cross, and
Bill.
Jesus is on the cross. One disciple
Jesus on
takes
the
a
cross.
claw
Jesus
hammer
on the cross.
and frees one of his hands.
Frees
And Jesus'
one of his
hand
hands.
goes down, and he jacks off all over the other disciples.
He jacked
And you're like,
off all
Jesus,
over
I
the
can't
other
believe
disciples.
that you got your hand free, and the first thing you do is jack off. He says, well, to tell you the truth, I put my hand down there to cover myself, and I forgot about the fucking hole. Are you going to do that for an hour, you little cocksucker?
You have
come
my
on.
permission.
That might be one of the best things I ever did. I'm sorry that it had to be from you, but
How many different Jackie laughs did you have, Bill, in the repertoire?
I don't know. I was imitating the ones they had, like, at the ready.
Oh, do them all in a row. Give us a medley.
There's one where, like, if you see a clown with blood on his costume and you look at him and Jackie had this laugh that would say, oh my God, like, was so sinister. Sister Sadie. Was that what you're going to do?
Fred was responsible for all of it.
Fred
And
Norris.
I got the blame, and I got the credit. He recorded every one, isolated every laugh, and he played it at every horrible place. And people say, that's the funniest thing you do. And I'm like, I can't take credit for it, but I can't take the blame either. I was never doing that.
This used to happen to me a lot, still does, where they'll announce a tragic situation on the Stern Show and they'll play my laugh. And and it would be a show I wasn't even listening to. And I'll look on my Twitter and it's a million Twitters going, well, maybe you think a baby falling out of a window is funny, but I assure you I do not. An ex-fan.
Fucking Fred is great. You know, he used to go, ooh, ooh. And one day I said, what the hell's that? And he says, that's you. I said, you're crazy. Then one day I was listening back to his show, and I heard myself between jokes. It was like a break, and I went, I'm like, wow. And I came in like an idiot and said, Fred, I can't believe you're right. Here, listen to it. And he went through the thing and took and the next day, a Cub Scout got hit by a bus.
Bill, didn't you say it was like a supervillain's laugh? Let him go. Like,
Oi.
you guys remember meeting for the first time? Bill, was it? I know you did the Lucille Ball thing over the phone.
Yes.
The first time.
That was like one of the first things I ever did.
Yeah.
Well, the day before, I told Howard, I said, hey, Howard, I think that Lucy is not long for this world, and we all loved her. I mean, but we were a little dark. And, enough to make Kay Gardella scream in her column the next day. I never heard of such a thing. She was all mad. You see her in her teacher's, dress or dowager's hump and, yelling at just like, Lucille Ball was a beautiful person. And I'm sitting on the phone going, oh, why don't you get away from me? What is with the orderlies? They're all, where do they? Haiti. They come from Haiti.
It really sounded, when he called, it really sounded on any phrase she could drop dead. It really did. We were going wild.
My favorite, Bill, was here's a card from Tom Bosley.
Oh, these are the things that keep you going.
Let's stop them.
Who's that from? George. What did I say? The guy with the Lonesome George with the
George Goebel.
George Goebel.
Yeah. Here's one from George Goebel. Hey, Lucy, you ever get it on with George Goebel? Oh, that crew cut. Oh. That's all I saw was the top of it when I looked down.
Gilbert, you were in studio that day.
He was.
Yes. I heard it on YouTube yesterday.
I was just like, Gilbert was really screaming, and I just thought, here's a man after my own heart. This is so goddamn dark, after everything she achieved. Miss Grant takes Richmond, and that's what gave me all my respect for her.
At one point you said, here I am with one foot in the Twilight Zone and one on a banana peel.
It was
one more unfunny joke.
So good. Gilbert, you asked if she'd had an affair with George Goebel. You sounded very young.
Jeez.
On this recording.
Oh, that's scary.
You were lobbing shit in there.
What was it, 32 years ago? 33 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, but who's counting?
Wow.
No.
That's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah.
I just hope I go quietly in my sleep tonight. I really do. Do you know what I found out? The reason I'm so messed up is because I have autism. I just found that out.
You did?
I had no idea.
You have autism?
Everybody has autism. It's like having shoes.
This is why I care so much about the periphery that I do. It's the only stuff that translated to me and made sense. If you showed me how to tie my shoe, you could show me 100,000 times. I still couldn't do it. But if there was Joe Besser running around in his pajamas and Mo trying to pull his tooth out. I'll never forget every scintilla of that. And as soon as I was sick of all of that stuff, I began just watching the corners of the picture on TV so I could have like more wood from that forest, Stooge Forest.
Jesus.
Ew, you pulling out my teeth. Come on down and we'll fix your tooth.
Gil, had you heard that?
That's why, Gilbert. Does that make sense? Autism.
Does autism make sense? He's saying.
No, I always
that's
thought
why it's autism.
Of course not.
Yeah, but what?
There's stuff locked away.
Yeah, no. I think all of us have it, because it is like
It's a sliding scale.
I'm also, if it's something I need to know about, I don't know how to do it. And I don't know how the information on important things. But, if you ask me, like, who was the assistant cameraman
On the Vernon Dent story.
Yes. that I could tell you.
That he's good.
Or how long was the original Earl Scheib commercial?
Yeah.
or Joe Franklin. What was he selling? Martin
Paint. Yeah.
Yeah, he used
And
to sell
Hoffman's beverages.
Oh,
at Martin Paint, it ain't just paint.
and
yeah.
he used to sell Nuco margarine.
Did you ever meet him,
What are
Jack?
they-
Joe Franklin?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, you knew him?
I was sitting next to Joe Franklin when he went to a screening at the Directors Guild of The Aristocrats. I was sitting next to him
God.
when Sarah Silverman came out and sat on the couch in the movie and said, "Yeah," and I went over because I thought maybe Joe Franklin could help me, and I walked in and I sat down, and he sat down on the couch next to me and he raped me.
Yeah.
And the place went wild, and Joe freaked out. We're all like, no, Joe, it's a comedy show, Joe. It's good for you. It's good for you. Oh, my God. He was so pissed off because she said it so sincerely. Like it had just gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Joe Franklin.
Piece of
raped
work.
me. He was great
And
fun.
I remember one time doing one of Joe Franklin's shows, and he had this guy that worked with him who was, he had a few mentally unbalanced
They were
people.
always the same. They were always the same mentally unstable, but it was always a different guy.
Yes.
He'd go back to the same group or something.
Yeah.
He'd check one out for the day or something.
And so he had this mentally unbalanced guy who was talking to us, making no sense. And when he walks off, Joe Franklin, with this evil smirk on his face, says, "Hey, that's an excuse for forced sterilization."
Oh, man.
Meanwhile, the guy's working for 25 hours.
Yeah.
I have a really good friend who's a real show business brat. His great-grandfather's Eddie Cantor, and his grandfather was Jimmy McHugh, this guy, Lee Newman. And Joe Franklin was such a huge fan of Eddie Cantor and such a huge fan of Jimmy McHugh. And Lee went on his show, and his name is Lee Newman. And Lee's sitting there, and he's kind of nervous, and Joe goes into this whole glorious introduction. Here's a kid. I just love this kid. I've known him since he was born. We go back so far. He's such a wonderful kid. Let's hear it for Lou Neiman. It was just so classic.
Remember we had him on the podcast, Gilbert?
Yes.
And he walked off.
Yes.
He made that dramatic entrance.
It was so,
Like he walked out mad?
No.
No.
When he finished the show.
and because he was like a foot tall,
Yeah.
and he walked off and immediately turned into a silhouette.
He ambled down a long hallway and disappeared, like Chaplin disappearing into the iris.
Okay,
It was great.
I'd run into him on 8th Avenue and almost miss him because he's a full head. He was a full head shorter.
Yes.
And he's walking around by himself. He had whoppers. He actually told me that he told a whole bunch of us at dinner that somebody on his show started choking, and you could check up, and that a couple doors down they were getting ready to do the Nixon-Kennedy debate. And he said Kennedy ran down to his show and saved the guy's life and went back to do the debate. Everybody's like, Joe, how the fuck dare you?
Well, he told a story on the podcast of one time on one show he had both James Dean and Al Pacino.
Yeah.
And we worked it out mathematically. Al Pacino would have had to have been 8.
Yeah. I think it was 14.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him, Bill? Joe Franklin?
Joe Franklin, I didn't, but I do have a Joe Franklin story. The Jay Giles Band from Boston.
Yeah.
Eddie Gordatsky, who you know.
Sure.
Was my pal in radio. We were in the trenches together like 33 years ago in Boston. And anyway, the Jay Giles Band is going on the Joe Franklin show. So they want to mess with him. So they just grab Eddie and bring him in as a worm expert. And he's got worm charts and everything. And I hear him bullshitting his way through this professorial. I know. The worm has 10 hearts. Well, that's not true. It's just so dry and so silly. And Joe Franklin was all into it, And I love the Drew Friedman takes on Joe Franklin.
Oh, yeah. And then he got sued.
Yes.
Drew is the coolest artist. He's my favorite artist.
He
and
is.
He does like a pointillism that if you back off from it, it looks like realism. And he had a picture of Joe Franklin sleepwalking through Times Square singing, "She's the girlfriend of the whirling dervish."
Joe Franklin is a dream walking. Yeah. One of the pieces he got sued for, I think.
Everybody thought he was a gazillion years old because when he was doing an oldies show in the 50s, everybody thought he was already 60, but he was only like 25 years old when he was doing it. He just looked old. And there's this old little hunk of a guy, and then you go to his place. That coat that he wore every day for 20 years was bright red, but he was never on. He never made it to color. I'm so sick.
He offered Gilbert and I a sandwich from the drawer.
Yes.
What are you guys, hungry?
Oh, God.
And Billy, I always ask you to say this one. It's different from the Joe Franklin, but you've come from a very bigoted background. All of your relatives.
And come on, lay off of me. I wore my Boston T-shirt not to remind you of that.
Say the time when you were a little boy watching the Three Stooges, and your mother walked in.
Oh, yeah. I lived for that stuff, as you well know, and I'm glued to the TV set, and my mother comes in, and she's like, "How can you watch them? Duh. They're Jewish. How can you watch those horrible men?" I said, "Ma, I stopped going to church because I found my saints. How does that grab you?" Saint Larry.
You love that, Gil.
Yes.
You know what I learned? I didn't know this, and I should have known it, that Curly was accidentally shot in the foot by his uncle.
He shot himself in
with
the
a
foot.
shotgun.
Oh, he shot... Well, his uncle shot him, or he shot himself?
I thought he shot himself.
They shot each
and
other.
they said,
I'm not sure which is worse.
He always...
Jesus.
And so he always had like a limp.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to coach Will Sasso, who played Curly in the Three Stooges movie.
Oh, yeah. He was good.
And I had him on Skype, and I said, here's a weird thing, because I was trying to tell these guys everything that I knew, every piece of periphery, and that Curly had a limp, and he would run down the street, and he would pivot because he couldn't keep going. It was just a little routine sort of to save his foot from more pain, and then he'd have a second start. But I said he got shot in the foot when he was like 13, and I don't think they had doctors back in 1915. I don't remember any.
Now, is that a true story? Is that a true story? Because that's the oldest thing of his career. He shot himself in the foot. It's an old expression.
I read his Uncle Babe shot him in the foot.
Well, they called him Babe. That was his nickname.
I got bad information.
Yeah, now I remember they called Curly Babe.
Yeah. What's the matter, babe? Do you have another stroke?
and he was the pussy hound out of the three, right? That's what's crazy.
So, yeah.
Do you know what they called that? Curly said that was the chicken with its head cut off.
Jesus.
It's going round and round on the floor with no head. That's to him, that's what it would sound like. It doesn't make sense.
And now I got to ask you for another old favorite of mine. One time, I think you and your father were for watching
please.
Lola Falana on TV.
Oh no!
Find every painful memory you can dig out.
Yes.
No,
I can't believe he retained this.
I can't even say that stuff because it's really truly not my part of town. But I caught.
You couldn't say it back when you said it.
My dad wanted to set a particular house on fire when certain people moved in. And he was sneaking around at night, and one neighbor lady on the porch, sitting there watching him while he was slashing tires. He wasn't a happy guy. He would say stupid shit, and they all would, and it was like that in Boston. I'm sure every city was like, where'd they get that car? I wonder where they got that car. Over there, that box of fudgicles. And it's the most ignorant stuff, but it's so ignorant that it's laughable. And I don't know. It's like humor. Talk about dad jokes and all that stuff. You don't know where to go, where to tread.
Tell us the Lola Falana story, please.
I can't, Gilbert.
Please.
No, don't do that to him.
Don't make him do it.
What he said.
Hey, let's go back because he said something and I didn't get to throw this in. 2 Jews are on the Titanic, No. 2 Jews are on the Titanic and it starts to sink and the first Jew starts to cry and the other guy says, "What are you crying for? It's not your boat."
Oh, and I suppose you think Jewish jokes are funny. I happen to be Jewish.
Do you know what? I saw this woman. She had a store like a coffee shop, and she doesn't understand today's kids. And she was bitching and carping, but
I own a small coffee shop, and I said good morning to a young lady, and she used the fuck word at me. And said I triggered her. What nonsense. What is cisgender? What is Antifa? I told her the world has always been the same, and the newly empowered are always the world's biggest fascists. How am I supposed to understand them, act like them, spend all my time gaming and vaping and flash mobbing and sexting? Cripes, when I was a teenager, we played Ring Olivio, Yahtzee, Mumbly Peg.
Mumbly Peg.
And we asked our parents for a nickel to buy a pickle. Good old fangled fun. I stuck her unhappy little head into the coffee grinder and turned it on.
That's a stooge move.
But trying to figure out what you can say and what you can't say is bedeviling.
Oh, it's tough times. Yeah.
Yeah, but it came on so fast. It's not even like the rest of the culture caught up. When a wave hits, we all sort of get it at once. But humor was always subjective, and now there's all these restraints and subjective things on
sex
it.
and poop. I've been stuck in the same hole for 40 years.
Are you getting that resistance, Jack?
No,
like Seinfeld?
I don't listen to anybody. The guy's 75 years old and lives with his mother.
Do you get more sex or more poop?
It's his mother's birthday, and he's got no money. He says, "Listen, Mom, I got no money for your birthday, so I figured I'd just fuck you." And she says, "All right." So he starts fucking his mother, and all of a sudden he smells something, and Jesus Christ! And he gets off and he looks, and there's diarrhea all over the bed and all over the floor. It's running everywhere. He said, "Jesus Christ, Mom, what's going on?" She says, "Well, I'm too old to have an orgasm, and I wanted to show you how much I was enjoying it."
Oh man, and the thing is they'll say dad jokes. Nice one. It must feel real good. Your parents must be real proud of you for telling jokes like that. Oh,
you
my
don't get any
vaporizer
resistance
just
from,
ran out of.
You know what? The people that come out that come to see me know what I'm doing.
Sure.
Or if 5 people come and they bring somebody that doesn't know what's going to happen, they're overwritten. Like, who cares? It's so fucking harmless.
What do you think of Seinfeld's decision that he doesn't want to play colleges anymore because of the political correctness?
I can't get those bookings either.
Well, he had a good line for it. He just said, "Oh, it bothers me." No, they don't want you.
You see, time keeps ticking into the future.
Hey, I was on Comedians in Cars getting coffee.
Oh, you were.
No. But it's so funny because I'm in the credits of Eddie Murphy and Jerry for that episode, and everybody's going nuts on Twitter. What the hell did you do? And now everybody's, Jackie's picture must have been in the background, and he sued him to get money, or blah blah blah, or everybody's
it was the
speculating.
list.
Yeah,
Yes.
Billy had an MC list from 1979, and I was the MC, so I'm not on it. But on the list is Eddie Murphy, Gilbert Gottfried,
Yep, misspelled.
and Jerry Seinfeld, all three spelled wrong,
Yep.
which is classic. And
You
they
didn't
love
see this on Twitter?
Someone was telling me.
I'll tell you how good I'm doing in my life. So I got an email, are you ready for this, from Ron Jeremy's agent. Who knew he had an agent named Dante? And Dante emails me because I met him about 6 months ago. And he said, Jackie, I promised this person I would forward this to you. And it was an email that said, we came across this list and somebody told me it belongs to Jackie Martling. Do you know her? I said, game over.
Oh,
I didn't tell you about it.
that's
So
funny.
the guy, I contacted the guy and I said, "What's the deal?" He said, "Well, we want to use that list that we found. Is that yours?" And I said, "Yeah." I just saved. I save all kinds of crap. It was a little list that Hal Ennis handed me in 1979 because I was hosting the show, and my name's not on it. Just MC. Bob Woods was on it, and he never
Bob
got to go on
Woods.
because he was so drunk. Hawthorne didn't get to go on because they knew he wasn't going to do well. The first guy on it was Rich Gagliardi, who is now Julia. I always draw a blank. Julia Scotti, who is now the first guy on the list, is now a
he
woman.
changed his sex.
Such a great
Wow,
guy.
wow.
So the guy calls up and I said, "Make me an offer." So he says $600. So I emailed him back. You'd be very proud of me, Gilbert. I said, "All right, let's review. Let's review." A billionaire comedian is being interviewed by another billionaire comedian on $1 billion network, and you want a priceless piece of comedy memorabilia in perpetuity worldwide forever and ever in every kind of media that we have now or may ever have, and you want to give me $600. What would you say? And the guy wrote back, I'd have said what you just said. Let me see what I can do. And then he came back to me and said, well, they're going to go a little higher. They're going to give you $1,000. And my first thing was I was going to say, you know what? Tell Jerry the good news. He just saved $1,000 because and then I said, "Fuck it, it's too much fun. It's too
There's
much
never
fun."
any money in Hollywood.
No,
That I
no,
don't
no.
understand. It's
Yeah,
like
no.
everyone I ever talked to said, "Well, we'd like to get you involved. We'd like to get you on board and everything." But it's like right now
It's a
there's
little
no
tight
money.
right now. A little
There's
tight
no
right
money. Everybody you talk to, there's no money. Then what the hell are you hanging in Hollywood for? Well, you'd make more money in a sawmill town in Michigan.
Hey,
it's
the
like
biggest
nobody makes any money. I don't have any money. We didn't break even.
There's so many stories like that, and this is the worst one I think I've ever heard. That the remaining members of Queen haven't seen a penny from Bohemian Rhapsody, which grossed
I believe
$1
it.
billion. Is that possible?
of course.
Is that?
Sure it is.
Creative accounting.
I remember a writer, I forget what movie, but it was one of these like $1 trillion.
No, it was the Eddie Murphy movie. It was the
No,
writer
this
from
was-
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, but this was some other movie, I
Buckwalter.
remember.
Art
And
Buckwalter?
it was like bigger than Star Wars, all the Star Wars put together. And this guy said, they owe me money because they made this much money. You could read about it. And one of the studio guys said on the news, well, this just teaches the public that a lot of times we exaggerate how much a movie made to get more interest for people to see the movie. And I thought, oh, okay.
So you're lying on both ends.
Yes.
Gilbert and Jackie, did you ever hear that story about Tom Hanks? He got a script and he got called into some office and he said, I read the script, I really like it. And they said, well, what do you think? And he said, well, for money? And they said, well, yeah, ballpark. He's just said, I don't know. You should take care of me, like on the back end. And they were saying all kinds of stuff. And he said, how about this? How about 2 weeks after the picture comes out, I want
a good percentage of the figure you guys print in the paper.
That's great.
Do you know what I mean?
There's a negotiation.
That's great.
He's got everybody sitting there like ghosts. What did he say?
Bill, talk about a little bit about escaping as a kid, because I just heard a podcast you did with Joe Dante,
Oh,
which
right.
was very good. And
Oh,
you
is
were,
it?
Yeah, you were talking
I was
about
mad at him
why.
because I was going to do Bugs Bunny. Imagine, this is a full-grown man sitting here saying this shit. I was going to do Bugs Bunny in Back in Action.
Okay.
And Joe, he just was not into me. He didn't dig me. I didn't care about that, but they kept calling me back, and they were like kid gloving me and everything. I said, what am I, 7? Just tell me what's going on and everything. And so I mentioned it to him off the air and everything. He said, I don't know what that's about. I like you.
Weird.
I know, but that's everything.
I heard you talking about your love of shock theater when you were a kid.
Oh,
that was something
Detroit.
that you escaped into. Yeah.
Shock
Because we had
theater.
we had Zachary here.
Night on Bald Mountain.
Yeah.
That was the theme.
We
We didn't have a host. It was a skull that would just come up on you as you watched, and there was no announcer. It just said things on the chyron, and they would go into a movie like The Curse of the Mummy or one of those old Universal beauties, and I loved that stuff, and I forced myself to wake up at 1 a.m. because I knew everybody else would be asleep, and this was like, I lived for this. And plus you had that desperation. I might have talked about this. When we were young, there was no way you could hold on to anything.
Sure.
You
Yes.
can't have a record of television.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
it's a good
get
point.
it when the
felt
getting's
like
good.
That's it.
And the coolest thing you ever saw in your life is going to be over in 35 seconds, and you start going, you get the angst engulfs you. I'll never see this again. And it just tripped
remember
my trigger.
when I was a kid, I kept reading about one episode of Route 66 called Owlet's Wing and Lizard's Tail was the name of it. And it had Peter Lorre, Lon Chaney Jr., and Boris Karloff. And I would check the TV guide every fucking day. And the one fucking day I don't check it, I find out they had shown it.
But you had no way of knowing.
No,
you never
no.
knew.
No
And
advance,
you
anything.
said, I would have really liked to see old Boris Karloff, is
right.
whistle.
All right, so a
Tooth
guy
whistle.
comes home really drunk. A guy comes home really drunk, and his wife is asleep on the couch under a blanket, and he's so loaded, so he gets undressed, climbs under the blanket, and fucks her hard. And then he goes upstairs, he walks in the bathroom, and his wife is sitting on the toilet. He said, "What are you doing here?" She says, "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" He says, "I just fucked you on the couch." And she goes, "Mother!" And she goes, run downstairs, and her mother's sitting there smoking a cigarette. And she says, "Ma, Harry just fucked you." She says, "I couldn't help but notice that." "Ma, why didn't you say something?" She says, "I haven't spoken to that piece of shit in 20 years. I wouldn't have..."
I laugh at these. I laugh. I let go. I have cosmic abandon when you start telling that stuff. You know what I wanted to ask you, Jackie, and maybe Gilbert? Did you ever try to get under anybody's skin at the Friars Club just for the hell of it? Like some guy's going to tell a joke,
and be rude to them, you mean?
You Tourette out the punchline.
Oh, yes.
So just to Tumblr, to mess things
Sometimes
up.
I just get up and leave, and just when they start the joke, just like,
Well, Gilbert has, of course, the infamous Shecky night at the Friars.
I wasn't
But
there.
you didn't go into that night looking for trouble. You weren't trying to gaslight Shecky.
I was a Friars
You know
thing.
this story.
Yeah, and I still have my own theory about it.
Yeah.
Because they said he ran out because he was so appalled by what you said. But what I heard was he was supposed to go on next.
Yes.
And he was getting the fuck out of there because he knew he couldn't follow you. So he came up with, a Donald Trumpian excuse to get the fuck, that's too much for me. I'm out of here.
Interesting.
Because nobody can follow you.
That's what a bunch of people told me.
And you didn't sense that?
A bunch of people said that. They said it was
he
obviously he was scared. He was scared to go on because he already has like stage fright.
Right. And he was out for like years and years and years. Rodney always said he was the funniest. He says, nobody funnier than fucking Shecky. Nobody funnier than Shecky. And what he said was, but Shecky didn't have an image. Martin was drunk and Benny was cheap and I get no respect. But fucking Shecky always is fucking funny. So nobody could say anything. All they'd say is, we saw this guy, he was funny, It's just it's that simple. Because he never got as big as he should have gotten.
No, I followed that, and even like Jan Murray was on that boat too.
Another
I think
funny
he
guy.
spent too much time being successful because he had a game show, and and if
golden
you don't stay in,
handcuffs. Right.
What's that?
Golden handcuffs. He was making a lot of money. Why would he?
And I think he's another guy that was one of the funniest of his time, but just kind of fell out of it.
Yeah, because when we're kids, if you see somebody's a game show host, you never can make the leap that they're a comedian.
No,
they're already locked into what they are. Jan Murray's
he doesn't
funny,
look seedy or needy, and he's not like. He would just be Jan Murray, the host of Treasure Hunt or something.
Treasure
like
Hunt.
Very
that was the one I
neat.
was trying to think of. Yeah.
Now,
Jackie.
how did you were talking about Sandy Hackett. Did we have this conversation? I think I played a round of golf with Sandy Hackett, and he told me the greatest story, and I hope it was him. But if it wasn't him, it was somebody who was the son of some comedian. But I'm pretty sure it was Sandy Hackett that said at his bar mitzvah, Milton Berle said, Sandy, come over here, son. And he walked him into the bathroom, and he said, close your eyes and put out your hand. You hear this story? And he thought he was going to hand him a wad of cash, and he put his big fucking cock in his hand. And Sandy said he almost shit himself. You never heard that story?
I don't know. He's holding out on us.
Jackie, listen to this, Jackie. Jackie, I'm glad you sit at my table, Jackie. Listen to this. Listen. Did you ever hear the girl that had this sweet, sweet ass? Yeah, she got diabetes. Oh, you Jackie, you stepped on my line. Oh, you putz, you schmedrick.
Jesus.
Do we dare bring up the Jackie puppet for a couple of minutes?
Sure.
For my documentary, we have the guy that created that.
Yeah.
It's cold in here.
It's a segue into your
myself in
documentary.
the fire
Yeah.
and get warm.
Who's got the puppet? You have it?
I'm sure it's over there in Sternland sometime. Do you remember when it was missing? It was so fucking funny because they went to satellite.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was missing. And somebody said, wait a minute, Jackie did a couple of shows for Free FM over at K-Rock at Sirius, and maybe he stole it or maybe he brought, but so the word is out that I stole the puppet, right? And of course I didn't, and I told him, all right, I admitted I did it, and I showed him a picture of me holding the puppet, but it was a blown-up picture. It was on cardboard. They were coming out with the fucking Stern 100 news van to get it, and I said, you assholes, of course I don't have it. I came up with this idea. I said, it was missing for weeks, and they're blaming me. I said, I got the idea. I told Steve, what's his name from 100
The engineer?
News? No,
Steve, I don't know.
Cheesy Steve. I said, you know what you do? Get that fucking guy that we have on once in a while, the lie detector guy. I said, I'll go first. Get everybody who works here in a line and ask them if you have the Jackie puppet, and that we'll find it for sure, and it'll be fucking wonderful. And Steve goes, that's a fantastic idea. What a great show it'll be. The next morning at 6 o'clock, Howard walked in with the fucking puppet, and it was never heard from again. He had it the whole fucking time at his house.
Wow.
Is that some crazy shit? And nobody's heard any of that stuff. And I'm not disparaging him. It was good radio, but
That's probably like a Twilight Zone after Howard took it home one afternoon and he puts it in the basement.
And you can't put
at
the
night you hear,
toothpaste back in the tube. Well, Jackie didn't steal it. Hey, he's an asshole
Why
anyway,
Why you want beef and broccoli now? Hey, wait a minute. What's that? What's that?
He's doing a Twilight Zone bit with Howard and the puppet.
Now
Howard and the puppet.
You told me, Jackie, that they had an even more grotesque grotesquely frightening, offensive Robin puppet.
It was, I have no idea what happened with that, but where that wound up. But it was, I think Ralph made it because when we did you remember the Channel 9 show? Remember Clarence Thomas, Billy? Ralph made a Clarence Thomas doll or a face for
face,
somebody
a
to
mask.
wear. And it had lips literally the size of like two wiffle ball bats on top of each other. And his lips were immense. And they also had his hair, his afro, tied up to a piece of string. So when somebody said something funny or offensive, they'd pull the string and his hair would go up like buckwheat.
Farina.
And then somebody made a Robin one, but it was so over the fucking top. God knows where that is.
You know what? That show also, there was a special guest that day. And he meant a lot to me because I didn't have a dad, so he was like a father figure. I imagined myself being like Robert Vaughn, the man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're a big
And
man
I
from
couldn't
U.N.C.L.E.
wait
guy.
to meet him, and I was going to play a character part in the sketch. It might have got cut, but I had a dress on, and I was running around backstage, and I come up to Robert Vaughn, and I said, you were my idol. And he's recoiling, looking at me in a dress. My idol. Don't ever meet your idol. If
only there was behind the scenes shit from that show because it was crazy. What's his name? Bob Denver and one of the two girls from that show,
Marianne.
Either Tina Louise
they
or
had
Dawn
been
Wood.
in AA for like 20 years or something, and they came on. They were so appalled by the show. They were doing an appearance in Atlantic City, and they drank all the way down to Atlantic City.
No.
Do you remember we had the big 6'3" security guard played the skipper, and we had him sitting in the sand underneath a palm tree, and there was enough sand that we could hide the bottom half of his leg, and we had a fake leg, and we were eating his leg. And it was fucking priceless. And I was Marianne. I had a big, huge belly. Oh, it was fucking.
All this stuff sounds like an acid trip when you run through it real quickly, but if you spent 4 hours, it was like an avalanche of comedy going on in there. And I don't care if it was Gilbert coming in and screaming at the top of his lungs for more than 5 minutes. I'd go out of there with my ribs hurting me from
great
just
days.
doubled over.
There was almost a world war. Gary Busey was on the show, and he had been in a motorcycle accident. And I think he got pretty seriously hurt and got really banged up. So we created a sketch called Motorcycle Injuries for Men Club, like hair
He
for men.
famously wasn't
the
wearing
head
a helmet.
injury club
Right.
for men.
Head Injury Club for Men. And so
You wrote it. You don't remember it?
And Howard's wearing like some kind of
doesn't remember
got
it.
bandage around his head, but he had a tube going up, so that when he squeezed the tube, or Ralph squeezed the tube, the blood would come oozing down his forehead. And we're doing dress rehearsal, and Busey's right there across from him, and Ralph, of course, didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And when he squeezed it, the little tube popped out and shot fake blood all over Gary Busey. And he thought it was on purpose. And I don't know if you remember, I thought fists were going to fly. It was, of course, it was a rehearsal, so the cameras weren't going. Oh, what the fuck.
All I tried to do was squeeze blood, and it just popped open, and it got all over his face, and he was angry at me.
But of all the people that do that to, like that fucking guy.
We had him on this show. Piece of work.
Gary?
Yeah, Gary Busey. Yeah, well, of course, and he wasn't wearing a helmet in that accident. He suffered serious damage.
Of course.
Tell us about the doc since you brought it up. It's a good time to bring it up. To plug it.
The guy that was my radio partner for 8 years, Ian Carr from IKA Collective, has been doing it and interviewing different people. And
These two guys are in it.
Gilbert's in it, Billy's in it, Willie Nelson tells some jokes, and we got a whole bunch of people. And I don't. Who knows? It's fun. It'll be fun going to film festivals, and you never know what's going to run up the flagpole and be enjoyed. But these film festivals, you could sit there for days and never smile. So if there's something the least bit funny, it's going to be a fucking home run.
I love the trailer.
And people are loving the trailer. We had to yank the trailer off because people were too interested, and we didn't want to come too soon. You know what I mean? Because it's not out yet. But I just want to do the Q&As and answer the questions and set some stories straight and everything. But It's it's wacky because
What's it called? Joke Man.
Just Joke Man.
Okay.
You know,
Nice.
when you were talking before about seeing that people on game shows, you couldn't imagine them doing anything. One of the saddest things I remember, I was on Hollywood Squares, and Dom DeLuise was on that, and he was sitting next to me, and he turned to me very seriously, and he said, do you think doing game shows can hurt your career?
That's fucking great. I'm so proud because I did that show twice, and I think I was edited like 3 times. I know one time.
Were you the Paul Lind that day?
I forget what I said, but what's his name? What's his face?
Bergeron?
Tom Bergeron goes, TMI, Jackie. TMI. I think I did a diarrhea joke about Madonna. It's like, you're just trying to loosen it up.
On Hollywood Squares, you did a diarrhea
Well,
joke.
it was a little more, it was a little obscure, but I got my point
Fletcher's
across.
Castoria.
Hey, I went out there to do it with Howard, and Princess Zsa Zsa was on the show.
Uh-oh.
And she'd be going up the stairs. Her ass took up the entire staircase. You couldn't pass, and we used to piss ourselves laughing.
Bill, what do you know about Paul Lind? Because Gilbert says he was a vicious anti-Semite.
Was he really?
Yeah, I
he had a
heard
drink
from
or
one
two.
of the original producers. They said like during lunch, all the other acts would be like, having lunch and telling jokes and being nice and funny. And Paul Lind would be bombed out of his skull because he was this drunken old queen and a bitter drunken old queen. And he'd go, "Those
That's
fucking
redundant.
Jews. They're the reason I don't have a career. Those fucking Jews held me back at every point."
Somebody say the Jewish guy, Paul Lind's an anti-Semite, and they go, "That fag?"
Oh, my God. Hey, he was right on the train behind the Jews, The pink triangle.
Once that umbrella opened up.
My God. Tell Billy the Ronnie
Das
Shell story.
Juden. Sorry.
Tell him the Ronnie Shell story. I want their take on that.
Oh, well,
With the Alan Ladd.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I want to know if you think this is true, Bill.
Okay.
According to Ronnie Shell, what Alan Ladd was into, he'd gather up a bunch of women and they'd all like surround him, and he'd stand in the center naked holding a chicken. And according to Ronnie Shell, all the women would start singing, "You simply got to fuck that chicken."
Wait a minute.
That's
He
in that
wanted them
book.
to do
That's
that?
in the book.
It's in the book.
That's like
That's
Blue
in the
Velvet.
in full service.
Sing
Yeah.
Blue Velvet.
It's in Bowen. What's his name? Scotty Bowers' book.
Scotty Bowers.
So then there is something to it.
But I'm not sure that's a song, and I'm not sure it was Alan Ladd. But they mix it. they mix and match everything. You know what I mean?
My favorite part of that book
Was the whole thing?
Yeah.
Did you read that book, Bill?
Which one?
Full Service, the Scotty Bowers book.
No.
Oh,
He-
we'll send it to you.
The
I'll
last
send it
book
to you.
I read was
He-
One Fish, Two Fish.
He spends
Red fish,
like
blue fish.
3/4 of the book talking about all the dicks he sucked, all the times he's gotten fucked in the ass, and he goes, "But I was really into women." And
When did you sneak that in?
yeah.
When he's talking about Lucy, I love the passage where he was a bartender at the Hollywood parties, and Lucy reached across and grabbed him and said, "If you get my husband laid one more time, I'm going to cut your balls off." That's great. It's fucking
Can you
great.
say it in Lucy's voice, please?
Oh, come here, you. If you get my husband laid one more time, I'm gonna cut your balls off. Oh, Ethel. Ethel, it's Bill Holden. Remember in Musso and Frank's?
Yep.
Ethel, it's Bill Holden. He was looking at them. We're talking about stuff that nobody in the world could follow. Not even me.
Some guy's in a bad barroom brawl. And he gets his face all smashed up really bad, so they have to wire his whole face together. So he's in the hospital, and for a couple of weeks, they got to force feed him with this machine that has a tube coming out of it that pushes the food up his ass. So one day the nurse pushes in the machine and takes the tube and jams it up the guy's ass. And he says, Nurse. She says, what do you want? He says, have you got another one of these machines? What do you mean? Here in the hospital, have you got another one of these machines? She says, yeah, why? He says, I want you to have lunch with me tomorrow.
Oh, boy. Jackie, you think of the anatomy an awful lot.
He does.
The digestive system.
That's the only
and all
safe
that.
place.
Guy pukes in a bowl. The guy next to him eats it.
I love it.
What about the Pat McCormick story? What do you know about that, Jack? The helicopter story.
That
Billy,
was,
you know this one?
No, I know the baby story at the lunch.
Yes.
Yeah, this was one that Pat McCormick, all of them there was a group of them that would get together and they'd all try to outdo each other.
Outgross each other.
Don Adams was one of
Yeah,
them.
the Army's Army.
Yeah, this was just, they weren't even trying to outgross. They would just have a big dinner. And
Bill Dana.
Then when it was Pat McCormick's turn, he had them all meet at this place, and he handed them all a paper bag with an apple and a sandwich in it, a tuna sandwich. And then they were like saying, like, what the hell's this? And then each one was led onto a helicopter, one after the other, and they would have a hooker on the helicopter who would suck the guy's dick as the helicopter was circling his house.
So none of these guys knew enough to say no after being around the guy forever, you know.
Would buzz the house while the
Pat
wife
McCormick wants you to come over. Forget it. I'm busy.
And I heard one of them, when they got home that night, the wife said, so, how was your night? And he goes, okay. And then he says, so how was your night? And she says, it was all right, except that this helicopter kept circling the house.
Oh, that's great. We were sitting there on the Stern Show one day, and boom, at like 6:15, Kennison walked in with Pat McCormick.
Wow.
And Jack Riley, is that his
Yeah,
name?
Jack Riley.
Yeah.
And Chuck
He was
McCann.
one of those. That
The
gang.
four of them, like the Mount Rushmore.
We're all in that,
Jeez.
all in that same group.
And we were like, holy motherfucker. It was just, and I have no idea what happened. I have no idea. It was so crazy. I'm sure it was a din the entire time. McCormick was the size of a fucking...
Like 6'5", yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Don Adams had a stand-up routine.
He did.
But I remember talking to Jonathan Winters once. He said, what's stand-up? What comedy clubs? There wasn't any. It was called interrupting somebody's dinner. And I think about it, and it's like that's about the size of it. But Don Adams was running around back in those days. I think they played jazz clubs and stuff.
I think Bill Dana wrote for him.
Yeah, Bill Dana wrote his act.
He wrote his act.
Yeah.
And Don Adams, that voice that he always used for like the Get Smart voice, and on the Bill Dana show, he played House Detective Byron Glick.
Byron Glick.
What you need is a quart of Glick blood in you. Just because the guy was scared next to him, talking about how brave he is. But I mean, he goes, Your Honor, for the past half hour, the district attorney has been up here making a total ass of himself. Now it's my turn. I'm sorry, it's not as scintillating as you may have wanted. Oh, I saw him when he was like in the throes.
You did?
He was at a recording studio, and I think he was doing Inspector Gadget still. And he had a game show or a TV show, sitcom called Check It Out.
Yeah,
and he played
Checking
the
Out.
manager
Yeah, right.
of a
That's
grocery
right.
store.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I heard he made more from that that sitcom, which no one ever saw,
No.
but I heard
No.
he made more from that.
Don't forget Don Adams' Screen Test.
Oh,
in
yes,
the 70s.
yes.
Remember that, Bill?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Don Adams screen test.
Yeah. He wasn't a happy guy, from what I
No,
understand.
well, when I saw him, like when it was near the end, his eyebrows were dyed boot black, and the whole works that goes with
Royalties
it.
are so weird. Leslie West said that Mississippi Queen was a huge, huge show, and whatever rapper that was one of the first really big rappers sampled like a little hunk of Mississippi Queen and put it on his rap record that was a huge seller. And Leslie said the checks he gets for that would far surpass the checks he got for Mississippi Queen.
That's fascinating.
It's crazy that
You know what? It's musical vandalism.
Don Adams had that look of that real midlife crisis look, where
Frantic.
he had that horrible 70s guy trying to be hip, not a hippie.
What do you mean, like a tan and a members only jacket?
Yeah, and the hair long. Oh, and the
Right.
porn,
Like
porn
Jack Carter with
star
the love
mustache.
medallion.
And then it just bled away 30 years.
Like,
Yes.
like Bill said, like Jack Carter did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the love medallion and the.
I love everybody.
Yeah.
the love, the big piece.
I love it. You know the difference between men and women?
Did you ever meet him, Jack? Did you ever meet Jack Carter?
No, but the greatest Jack Carter story was the first time I went to a Friars roast, Bob Goldthwait was there.
Oh, I know this one.
And Jack Carter, do you know that?
No.
And Jack
Yeah. Tell
Carter
it.
was sitting on the dais, and Goldthwait goes, I was in Los Angeles. I had to go meet my agent at a restaurant, and I was waiting for this guy. I'm sitting there in my car waiting for this guy to pull out of the parking space, and I'm waiting and waiting, and finally the guy pulls out, and this other guy zooms in front of me when I'd been waiting for 10 fucking minutes. God, so I just stole the fucking guy's license plate. And he holds it up, and he goes, Carter, you want this? Jack Carter's license. And nobody
had
was
him-
even shocked. It wasn't even funny.
We had Jack Carter. No, we had Jack Carter on Ren and Stimpy. He played this character named Wilbur Cobb, this old guru of a cartoon animation guy. They were sending up somebody, I'm not sure who, but Jack was perfect because he sounded like he was spitting up pieces of his breathing system. And his wife came to pick him up, and I said, "Boy, Jack's got. I mean, his voice is so rich with I don't know." And I said, it's like snot or something, talking snot. And she went, nobody's got more snot in his throat than my Jack.
We are number one.
This is a demographic.
We missed out on him on this show. We wanted him so desperately because he was so bitter.
And he had said yes.
Yeah.
That's the worst part. He said yes to doing it, and then he died like the next day.
Well, he
See,
had a
what
lot
a
of
prick.
snot in his throat.
What a
Do you know what? He was very generous of spirit. He was, because when I was working with him, I was on a Tonight Show one night, and I wanted to do a Jay Leno impression, and Jay shot me a look. I started doing it, and he shot me this look, and it went right through my heart. I was like crippled, stunned. I didn't know what I was going to do, and so I started doing the usual nonsense. And I came the next day, and I said, Jack Carter was having lunch at this joint called Mirabella. It was near where we recorded. It was an Italian restaurant, and he held court there. And I came in. What's the matter? You look like you lost your best friend. And I said, I felt terrible being on a Tonight Show and, trying to do something. I have no business being there, but Jay didn't want me to do impressions of him. So he goes, you held your own. He saw it. He watches
nice.
all that stuff. Bilko used to watch all that stuff. The newest comedy shows when they were
Sure.
when they were so out of fashion. Why don't they call me? Why don't they call me? I'm a funny guy.
So a girl goes to the guy. See, that's all I can do. The girl goes to the gynecologist. And she's, Doc, I'm freaking out.
There was no girl. Admit it. There was no girl that ever went to the gynecologist
Girl
and
goes to the
started
gynecologist.
freaking out.
She's, Doc, I'm freaking out. I keep finding postage stamps from Costa Rica in my vagina. And he examines. He says, "Lady, those aren't postage stamps. Those are the stickers from bananas."
I love you. I love you so much. How much do I love you?
That's all I can do.
I just love you.
Wind-up toy.
Bill, we had David McCallum here. We know you're a man from Uncle Guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Good guest.
David McCallum.
Have you met him?
I think I did meet him once.
Yeah. We had him here. He was good.
He was
How
on the
old is
Stern
he?
show, wasn't he? They
80s.
brought him in, and he played Ilya Kuryakin.
Yeah, in his 80s.
Yeah, he's this Brit that was trying to be from Georgia, Russia, or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was good. It was really good. He was good.
Hey,
There was nothing else on TV. Look at, first of all, there was 3 channels, 3.5 channels.
Yeah.
If you could get channel 12 from Manchester, and it was like watching a snowstorm. Manchester, New Hampshire, and channel 10 from Providence, Rhode Island, and that was a snowstorm too. Yeah. But I would watch Pixels. I didn't care as long as I could hear it. You know, I was fine with it. Even old movies that oh God, what was that? Missile to the Moon. Mm-hmm. You ever see that one, Gilbert? It was like there was another picture that sort of emulated that called Cat Women on the Moon. I don't know if it was Roger Corman or not, but Missile to the Moon was so crazy because these 2 criminals are hiding in a rocket ship, you know. Nobody will ever find us in here. I don't know, Gary. I don't know. Maybe we better get out of here. And all of a sudden the door's shut and the rocket is getting ready to take off to the moon. And they go to the moon and they find all this. They find that jewels are so prominent and everything. And then they go to steal some jewels that were in the caves. And this giant phony spider shows up. And it was, I know sound. And I know it was some schmo on a mic doing the spider noise, like. Who
else listens to that and knows what it is?
Billy West.
You know, Jesus.
You're
I know it was some Billy West back in 1959.
You're a George Pal guy, aren't you, Bill? You're
I
a
am.
big George Pal guy. Gilbert loves 7 Faces of Dr. Lau.
I love that too.
Yeah.
Jesus.
He eats that shit up.
Mike, the world is so filled with wonderful things. I know, Dr. Lowe, but you're leaving. How do you know it's going to be good for me? I don't. Neither do I. You know, he would switch. He'd switch from like this senatorian, this like, you know, orator, because he did have a great voice.
Tony Randall.
Into everybody's worst nightmare of a Chinese impression. You know, this is the circus of Dr. Lowe. Will tell you things that you don't know. You know, and I watched it one time like about 5 years ago, and I was like going, oh, it's like a car crash. But there was good stuff in the movie, though.
It's like going back and trying to watch a Peter Sellers movie, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, the Marx Brothers.
What about Lolita?
Crazy.
He was great in Lolita. He
That
played
holds
Quilty.
up like crazy.
Yeah, Quilty.
He
Claire
corners James Mason on the porch, you know, because Quilty is banging Lolita. He's like a guru to her, and James Mason is madly in love with her. So this Quilty kept changing his identity, and he wanted to give what's his name? What's his name?
James Mason.
James Mason. And he goes, well, I see you're out here hanging around. That's good. That's good. I came out to hang around too. And a couple of guys like us, you know, sometimes they hang around. And he was doing this whole like pickup rap. And James Mason was, you know, he was homosexual. And he's acting like this is really bothering him. You know, he was like, you know, oh, stop it. You know, like.
That was a really creepy. Ooh.
Lolita?
Oh, it was.
I remember Peter Sellers keeps saying, "Yeah, you know, because we're two normal guys. We're
Two normal guys. And now and then a couple of normal guys like us want to get together, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're normal and I'm normal. But it was this beautiful, I think he probably pulled it out of his ass, to tell you the truth. And I loved it. It was
Isn't he playing ping pong at one point in
Oh.
that movie? Claire Quilty?
Yes.
Yeah, he's playing
Yeah,
table
he had all
tennis.
these. But he, what was the weirdest part? Oh, when James Mason is looking for a place to live, because he's a teacher in residency and he needs a little spot to live at. So he answers an ad and it's Shelley Winters. And she shows him her garden and, the cherry pies. I bake my own, And he
Eats them too.
Yes. And he looks out the window. He looks out the window and he sees like a 16-year-old Sue Lyon, the actress, with heart-shaped glasses on, sitting there as fine as you please, reading Archie comics. And she goes, he sees her and he goes, I think I will take the room. I like it. I got a good feeling. And she goes, so what was it? My country garden? My, my location? My cherry pies? And he's looking right at Sue Lyon and he goes, I think it was your cherry pies.
Bill, you want to try this with Gilbert?
Is this
thing in
going
front of you?
anywhere with all this crap that I'm saying?
This thing in front of you, you guys want to try this for fun?
Oh, yeah.
A Jessel duet?
Yes.
Gil, why don't
Okay,
why don't you
but you got to call it. You got to call it as we go.
You start, and you guys can do a verse each. I separated them.
Oh, okay.
So and then you can do the last one together. So Bill will start.
Okay.
Go ahead, we're going to do it a cappella. Go ahead, Bill.
What does that mean? In the nude? I think it means in the nude. I don't know. I can't. Okay, I'll try something. I'll try it. Back in childhood days, I can remember loving caresses showered on me. Mother's eyes would gaze at me so tender. What was their meaning? Now I can see.
One bright and guiding light that taught me wrong from right, I found in my mother's eyes.
Oh, that was a song. Okay, where am I at? Those baby tales she told, that the road was paved in gold. They used to hold their throats and do that fake.
Yes.
Like, see the tree, how big it's grown.
Bobby Goldsboro.
And friends, it hasn't been too long. It wasn't big. He did crickets. Wait, what did I say? Okay. The road paved in gold, and I found in mother's eyes.
Now you, Gil.
Just like a wandering sparrow, one lonely soul, I walk the straight and narrow till I reach my goal. God's gift sent from above, a real unselfish love I found in my mother's eyes.
This is the last verse, Frank.
Yeah, you could do it together.
Coming up. I have an addendum.
Go ahead.
Wait. One bright and guiding light that taught me wrong from right, I found in my mother's eyes. Those baby tales she told.
That
The
road
road
paved
paved
with gold,
I
I found in my mother's eyes.
Now, hey, hold on before you applaud.
Oh, my God.
And like so, I bid Gilbert a big wet kiss because I heard things about him. And like so, I run like hell because Gilbert has a knife. And like so, I kill him before he kills me. And like so, I donate me and my tender ass to the Albion State Prison. And like so, I change my name to Lillian so all the prisoners will like me.
Jesus.
You know that part of the speech. Remember his Friars Club speech where he was so eloquent. I know we're just ripping him to pieces and making him sound like a marble-mouthed idiot, but he was more than that.
Yes.
No, he was so astute, and he was an orator, and he really had total command. He reminded me of like a mushmouth Myron Cohen,
That's a good analogy.
who had a beautiful voice.
Yes.
Myron, it's not a question.
I heard that Georgie Jessel, like toward the end, late years of Groucho's life, Georgie Jessel would show up at his house because Georgie Jessel had no money out of his career. He had no money, and he used to like ask Groucho if he could have some money.
He did eulogies to
He did.
eat.
Yeah.
He did.
My God, I
Because
know
he was
this
so
person.
good, but that's
Yeah.
all he had. Why didn't you save your money, George? Would you give him money, Jackie, if he came begging?
Oh, sure. If he rose from the dead.
You never met Jessel?
Do you know the story about Al Jolson and George Jessel?
Tell it.
He was. Al Jolson decided he was going to give. Jessel was so broke and down out, he's going to let him share the bill. And Jessel, before his egos, he's like, I want to be on the marquee. And meanwhile, he was a tiny, tiny star, and Jolson was huge. And he really went to the mat that he wanted to be on the marquee. And Jolson had him put on the marquee. Al Jolson, but Georgie Jessel. Which is just classic.
Fantastic.
What was he? Was there a record, you don't have to be Jewish, was somebody like Bob McFadden imitating like George Jessel or something?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
He's like, he comes running in the house. I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. And then he goes to the refrigerator and there's some ice water in there. He takes a big glass of ice water and drinks it down. I thirsty.
Adam Leslie used to, you know him? He used to tell all those old jokes where the guy goes to the doctor and he says, Doc, I swallowed a sponge. How you feeling? Thirsty. It's so stupid.
But it makes you laugh, though.
Oh, God.
But I was just
What's
thinking
the name
about
of
all
a
these guys the
What's
other
the name
day.
of a nice city in New Jersey that starts with T? Atlantic
Teaneck.
City. Stupid shit like that.
Bill Gilbert's a
Just
little bit
go
of
through the tunnel and watch out for those girls. They're not girls, they're boys. Those are the tunnel bunnies.
Did Paul Frees do one of the voices in the Beatle cartoon?
Yes.
Oh, which
did-
one?
He did John Lennon.
Because Gilbert's sort of obsessed with those bad Beatle cartoons.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Because it's like none of them sounded like the Beatles.
No, the George was pretty close. The Paul McCartney wasn't bad, but John Lennon, you got to remember, he was the ersatz, Orson Welles.
Yeah.
When they couldn't get Orson Welles, they got this guy, Paul Frees. Remember in the George Pal movie, Atlantis, the Lost Continent, he would go, Atlantis, the Lost Continent. And it was so cool that he had this big voice, and then he was doing, John Lennon,
Yes.
I don't know what happened to Ringo. Ringo, don't do that.
Well, you thought they all sounded like Ronald Coleman. Gil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like,
It's a far thing.
let's sing our song from our latest album.
Ronald Coleman. Now, was he a kid star at one point?
Jeez,
Am I
don't-
thinking of that? Or
don't-
Freddie Bartholomew?
Freddie Bartholomew
Oh, yeah,
was a
yeah.
kid's child star. Yeah.
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 He's so prim and proper, and this evil Alexis Smith is standing next to him while he's orating. What is that?
Orating.
What the word? Orating at his father's funeral. And Alexis Smith wants the guy's money, and she shows up in this glittering gown, and he's trying to pretend like, I'm not affected.
I apologize for the segue, but tell us about Disenchantment. Tell us about the
Disenchantment?
new series.
It's on Netflix, and we're doing the second season, and it's being received really well by the audience that found it. It's not like Futurama or The Simpsons. It's something totally different, which makes it beautiful to me. It's not what you expect. And I just play a couple of incidental characters, but I do a wizard named Sorcerio. And he sounds like... he sounds like Jonathan Harris. Oh, Sorcerio knows things that you don't know. And then there's the Elf King who sounds like Percy Helton.
Love
Gilbert.
Percy Helton.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm the Elf King.
It's like,
Oh, yes. You'll all pay. You'll see. You'll all see.
All frantic and I do the jester, but that's like a Phil Silvers, like a Dawes Butler, hulky wolf kind of voice, you know. And he tells a lousy joke, and they always drop him through a trap door, and he always acts like he didn't see it coming. How was that? Oh no!
I once worked with Jonathan Harris.
Yes.
When they were doing this really zero budget Problem Child cartoon series.
Oh yeah.
And the guy playing Big whatever that guy's name was, Big Daddy or something that Jack Warden played in the movie. They had Jonathan Harris. And I said to John, because I remember on Stern, they used to talk about him all the time because you'd imitate him. And I said, Howard Stern would love to have you on this show. And he goes, never, never.
I have everything to lose and nothing to gain.
You want to hear the greatest irony of all time is that my book got a spike in sales. It didn't sell that well, altogether. And all of a sudden, I sold almost as many as I did out of the gate. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what show I did or what I said or how the fuck. And what happened was Howard never mentioned my book on the show. So nobody that listens to his show, by way of him, had any idea that I had a book out. But now he has a book out, and if you buy a book on Amazon, underneath it says people who bought this book.
Very good.
So people, and they're already got their credit card in, they're already clicking, so they must be buying it. Fuck it, and buying mine too. Not everybody, but certainly it only takes a tiny blip to make a big difference.
Nice timing, buddy.
So and I don't think he could stop that. So which is great.
No, things can be done, Jackie.
No,
Things can be done.
So a guy's on the elevator with a big fat broad. He says, "Can I smell your snatch?" She says, "No." He says, "Then it must be your feet." We're gonna get letters.
Yeah.
We're gonna get letters.
We get a lot of letters.
We get a lot of letters.
Before we get out of
Jackie
here,
always launches in. He goes, He's like, reminds me of a story
I live for Billy's Jackie.
Hey, I got
ya?
one you can use at your next country club gig to open with.
Oh,
And that
okay.
way you won't get thrown out till the second joke. A guy gets in an accident and both his legs are all broken, so he's in a wheelchair. And his friend comes over to visit him, and he says, the guy in the wheelchair says, my feet are kind of cold. Would you run upstairs and get my slippers? He says, sure. And he goes upstairs, and there's the guy's 18-year-old twin daughters. And he says, girls, your father just sent me up here to fuck you. And they're like, you're crazy. He says, I'll prove it to you. And he yells down to his friend, both of them? And he yells back, of course, both of them.
Oh my God. I gotta laugh at them no matter what it leads to, It's like there was never any Johnny Fucker Faster. There was no kid that ever lived named Johnny Fucker Faster.
He's deconstructing your jokes, Jack.
At 7 years old, you're saying to yourself, there's no such thing as Johnny. We were talking about Andy's gang. I am so fucking old. Andy was the new guy.
Here.
Did you know Andy was the new guy?
Andy Devine and Froggy.
But Andy was the new guy.
Yes.
There was Uncle Ed. It was Smilin' Ed's gang.
Right.
Smilin' Ed, this big old fat fuck from Chicago with a military gray haircut.
Does this mean anything to you, Bill?
And then
No.
he got. I
remember Andy Devine.
Andy came, and he was the new guy. People like, well, you're really fucking old.
Billy, do Andy Devine.
Plunk your magic twanger. Froggy the Gremlin. He was the original Bobcat.
The original Bobcat. You were a big Red Skelton fan,
twanger.
Red Skelton was great. I used to watch him watch himself. I mean, my mother used to watch me watch Red Skelton because I would laugh so fucking hard. And it was really great.
Not harder than him.
He laughed
right.
at his own jokes. It was great. And then he did his 75th anniversary show or 50th anniversary in show business or something. And it was so long ago that there was still a fucking television in the Comedy Condo in Fort Lauderdale. That's how long ago. And I'm sitting there with Bill McCarty and Adam and a bunch of guys. And all of a sudden there's Red Skelton standing at the mic and laughing and swinging his arms. And they're like, Martling, that's fucking you. And I don't know whether it's subconscious or
interesting.
what, but he's standing there moving around and giggling and just so tickled with himself. I think I was already doing that.
Gil, didn't they tell us Red Skelton had an enormous porn collection?
Yeah, I think. Well, I know.
And Bud Abbott.
Bud Abbott
Yeah.
had a tremendous porn collection. Oh, here's something that
When he was relegated to the wheelchair, he couldn't reach the top shelf where he kept the best porn. Come on, Lou. Get it right. Get on all fours, Lou. Get on all fours and help me up.
I can't put you up there again. You're gonna fall.
No, don't worry about it. Take this around the corner and give it to Mel. It's formaldehyde. Stupid
one
plays
thing
on words.
I've discussed with Drew Friedman and
Yeah?
for a long time is that according to legend, Andy Devine and Clark Gable were having a gay affair.
Is that in Scotty's book?
No, it's in Drew Friedman's imagination. Yeah. It'd make a great Drew strip.
You want Billy
Andy
to do that?
Devine, and then there was Cary Grant and Randolph Scott.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Cary liked girls. When I saw those two big, beautiful boobs, I knew that I was in trouble. And then Randy walked in.
Before we get out of here, who's got an Al Lewis story they want to tell?
The first time he came on the show, it was like 1986.
No hesitation.
And he came in, and me and Fred were looking at each other cross-eyed because we are still absolutely positive he shit his pants. And that was a small radio studio, and we were like, holy fucking Lord. And he wound up being such a good friend and such a talent, such a wonderful guy. But he smelled like he had shit his pants on the way in. On the way, ask Fred. Oh my God, I'm going to get
A million flies can't be wrong. Ask him.
He was such a great character.
These flies are following me, and I don't know why, Hardman.
Jake the joke man. You know, the further you and Fred get away from him, the worse this fucking show gets.
Bill, by popular demand, please tell the story of Grandpa's restaurant with the two women.
Oh, okay. Jackie knows where Grandpa's restaurant was. It was
Bleecker.
called Grandpa's Bella Gente.
Yeah.
It's
It was
Staten
an
Island,
Italian
right?
place.
Well, there's one in the city,
Yeah, in the village.
in the village.
Yeah, the mafia set me up. I could run money through there. See? Yeah, and I got a young wife, that young chippy, and I'm doing that slow moan over the satin sheets. And then Jackie comes over with his corn pone humor.
No, he never said that. He never said that. I don't know. I needed to say the word corn pone. Corn pone. So he's in that restaurant, and I said, geez, I've never formally met him, and I was just, he must have seen me grinning like an ape at him, you know? Is that guy a regular? Staring at him, and I was one of the last people in there, and there was a young couple who had their little daughter, and the father says to her, go over and ask him where he lives. And she goes,
Okay.
she comes running across, and she goes,
Where do you live?
1313 Mockingbird Lane. And she's scared and runs away.
He's a monster.
And he looks at me and he goes, women. And then there's two biddies from the Midwest, like Minnesota or something, and they're having their New York trip, and they're winding it up, and it's like,
Oh, before we left, we had to come by your restaurant, and it lived up to its promise, and this pasta is so good. It's real al dente.
you know, and the other woman was like, oh, I agree totally. This is beautiful. And he goes, yeah. Well, we'll be going now. Yeah. You know, and he's being as cordial as he can be. And then they start out the door, and you know when somebody decides to ramp up again with a whole new conversation, they popped back in and went, oh, and we're going to tell all our friends. Yeah. And then the door closes, and he goes, drop dead.
That's my favorite.
Sardonic, but the guy, he had a heart of gold. You could just tell, I used to have dinners with him and stuff. And he made everybody, there was like 7 of us, and he made everybody give him the cash. And he would put it on his card. Because I might be gone tomorrow, but I'll have cash. He'll owe on the credit card. That's how I operate. Yeah.
Rock dead.
I was thinking about the old-time guys, and I said, God bless every one of them. I was watching shows, and all the stuff that Sid Caesar was able to do. And
I know. Great.
he wasn't for everybody's taste, but for some reason, I absolutely loved him. I wanted to be able to run those dialects, And one time I got to sit with him and have lunch with him, and these 2 guys I was with, they produced his little segments, the Sid Caesar videos where they would interview, Lucille Callan or whoever, Bud Yorkin, and, Larry Gelbart. And he sat there, and I said, Sid, I don't know what got into me, but I said, I just love you so much, and I wanted to tell you a hunting joke in Italian. Taking all the risks in the world. He was like, "Avevalo tutte ciaci medulla bello guzzi gonna go eccoli." Shotgun, boots, and and I said, "What do you think?" And he was so generous of spirit. He had a twinkle in his eye, but he really was thinking, I created this?
I begat.
He was just amazing. And Carl Reiner is still alive.
Yeah,
I met
we had
Howard
him on here.
Morris.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's great.
Yeah.
Did you have Howie Morris on?
No, we didn't. We started after Howie passed.
Oh, because I worked on a cartoon with him once.
I heard he had it out for Joe Barbera, Howie Morris.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a Joe Barbera story at Hanna-Barbera, which is used to be on before Ventura.
Cahuenga?
Cahuenga.
Yeah.
And Joe Barbera took his secretary, and they got on the elevator, and he started to go up, and he had this thing where he would press the stop button on the elevator.
The emergency stop.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, he would begin bumping and grinding. And then one of his best friends, also his security guard for a number of years, sees him come out down the first floor with the woman, and he goes, "Joe, man. Oh, Joe. What? I saw everything." They had a closed circuit camera in the elevator.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, we have to wrap
Who
up.
have we not maligned?
Oh, I don't know.
Bill, you're great. Jack.
Thank
So-
you.
so-
I have
I love you.
autism.
Thank you.
Billy.
That's why I keep cutting everybody off, because I have no attention span.
Oh, we covered the
So
autism.
don't kill me. Oh, and I have low T.
If you could do a combo ID and sign off and say, it's Larry Fine.
As Larry
He wants you
Fine.
to sign off as Larry.
Okay, I gotta get my glasses. My reading glasses. These are fishbowl glasses. All right. Hey, Mo, you are listening to Gilbert Gottfried's Colossal Terrific Podcast. Why don't you say Mammy?
Thank you, Bill.
What does that mean? Only a couple people know.
Thank you, Jack.
I love it. Thank
So,
you.
this
Thank you,
has been
Gilbert.
Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast.
Remember the name of his fucking show.
I appreciate it. I always love seeing you.
You guys are great.
And our guests, of course, were Billy West and Jackie the Joke Man Martling.
Oh,
Yay.
one clean one to take us out?
Dirty.
So, 3 guys are fishing in a lake, and one guy falls overboard. So one of the other guys jumps off, and he wants to save him, but he keeps going down and looking. Finally, he finds him and drags him back up, puts him in the boat, and starts giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. He turns to the other guy and says, I don't remember Fred having such bad breath. The other guy says, yeah, and come to think of it, I don't remember him wearing a snowmobile outfit.
You know what? All I have is premises, Jackie. I don't have any punchlines, but don't you ever get into somebody like, there's a guy on the Lower East Side, and he's got a power drill, and he's drilling holes into his head to find trepidation. And then you're supposed to finish it.
A guy goes to the library. She's a librarian. He's just a librarian. I need a book on suicide. She says, fuck you. You won't bring it back.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
We love
Thanks,
you guys.
Gilbert. Thank you, Big
Frank, Gilbert, Jackie, I love you guys.
I love you, Bill.
Pieces.
Thank
Billy,
you
I
s-
love you.
Thank you so much. This is a great one.
Thank you.
When are you coming out, Jack?
Soon.
I can't
I
breathe.
owe you.
Oh, I can't breathe.